This is the Surly Grognards for November 6th, 2018. This is Peter Bowman, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing all right.
It's been a little while since we've recorded an episode.
Yeah. We just kept on missing,
Yeah,
basically.
I was sick one week. You were busy one week. You were sort of zonked one week.
Yeah,
We had to record 3 Minute Anime another week.
just did not click together.
Nope. But we got it. We're back. We got another episode. This week, we are primarily going to focus. We got a couple of emails, which is always awesome. We love emails.
Yes.
Bardic DM sent in some stuff. There are a couple of different things in there which we were thinking about. We're looking at, but what we're going to focus on was one of them. Sort of sparked the idea, sort of a general conversation, which we will sort of get into as we talk about what the question was. So he basically one of the things he was asking about is suggested doing sort of a looking into my superhero campaign setting, Star City. So he said, we've had 2 campaigns that explored your Star City, and I'd love to hear you discuss about how you developed it, and maybe covering bits of the campaign world you weren't able to cover in the campaigns. And I'd be happy to talk about that stuff. I always am. But that sort of leaves Eric a little bit out in the cold. So I want to sort of broaden it a bit too. So we'll talk a bit about Star City and what Eric's impressions of it were and such. But also use that to look into sort of how at least I go about building a superhero setting.
Also, I hadn't thought about Star City in ages, so that's cool.
So we're going to talk about both Star City and about superhero settings in general for role-playing games. So Star City is a campaign setting that I've been noodling and kicking around since probably college. So the mid to late 90s.
Long ass time.
Yeah. Basically, all right. So I got into as I've said, as you all probably know by now, I got into tabletop role playing when I was very young, back in 1981, when I was 8. But that was all D&D and such. I didn't discover. I played a bunch of other sort of various types of tabletop gaming over the years, most of which were from then and up until I started discovering the other stuff. But I started playing the basic Dungeons and Dragons. Then I played a bunch of the other TSR RPGs like Gamma World, Star Frontiers, Boot Hill, Top Secret, and then eventually Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And then I stumbled across when I was at the Games People Play, which was a game store that was in Harvard Square in Cambridge.
Is that place still around?
They still exist, yes.
Okay.
Last I checked, at least. They mostly sell board games, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Let me take care of that.
But they've been around for 1,000 years.
Yeah, they still exist.
All right.
They've got a webpage. But yeah, they existed back when I was 10.
Yeah.
So, back in 1983. They've been around at least that long. And while I was in there, I was looking through the various role-playing games because they had a bunch of them, and they had this shelf of role-playing games of just all these different ones. And I was, wow, there's stuff that is made by TSR. And that's where I discovered the James Bond 007 role-playing game, which I've played and enjoyed, and is way better than it has any fucking right to be. It's actually a remarkably ahead of its time game. And that's where I saw it. I first saw the rules for Traveler, which I didn't pick up, but I was always tempted by because science fiction is awesome. And the reason I didn't pick up Traveler is there was this book on the shelf that caught my eye, and it was I forget what edition it was at the time. It was either late second edition or early third edition of it, but GURPS, the Generic Universal Role Playing System. And I was just completely hooked by the concept of a system that I could use, that I could play like fantasy or uh, science fiction or cyberpunk or anything. I could use it for any genre. I thought, wow, that's a cool idea. I wonder how they do that. So I bought the GURPS rules, and I fell in love with it because I like, wow, your stats aren't generated randomly. You get to pick them by spending points.
That's so awesome. I love point blind systems for character generation.
And there's and then there was like advantages and disadvantages and quirks and skills, and I fell in love almost immediately. And I ran a few fantasy games using it, and I discovered GURPS Supers, and I ran a superhero campaign, very brief one with it. And I thought it was good. It never really felt quite right. The GURPS Supers is good, but it didn't feel quite right. And I ran into a friend of mine in high school. This was late high school. Whom the guy I got to know was, I happened to run into him. Sort of sitting around outside the cafeteria during lunch break, and he had this giant tome with superhero characters in the cover. It was a role-playing game, but clearly, and it was this thing called Champions, which I'd seen advertised everywhere, like in Dragon magazine and such. Like I was aware of other superhero RPGs. I'd like tried the Marvel RPG, which was okay. But I'd heard about this Champions thing and heard that it was another point buy system. And this guy was big into Champions, huge Champions fan, and big fan of the hero system as a whole, which was at this point starting to come into existence. And so he got me into Champions, which I was at first a bit sort of hesitant on it because I was a diehard GURPS player because I loved GURPS. But I eventually came around on Champions being a better system for superheroes than GURPS is. I still to this day will say GURPS handles sci-fi better than Champions does. But Champions does superheroes and high fantasy better. GURPS does low fantasy. Basically, if it's gritty or very heavily skill-based, GURPS handles it better. If it's more cinematic and over the top, then Champions handles it better. But they both can do pretty much whatever. But at any rate, I got into Champions and played a bunch. And about this time, my younger brother and I together started coming up with ideas for a superhero setting. And this was in the this was in the mid to late 90s, I'd say. Mid 90s, actually. It was right as I was graduating high school and early college. So, yeah, so mid 90s. So, early to mid 90s, actually. So, right smack dab in the middle of the Iron Age of comic books. So, my brother was sort of getting into all of, Image's titles. So, he's big into Spawn, which is understandable. Spawn's actually kind of cool. He read some Savage Dragon. He bought a bunch of all the early Image stuff, some of which was good, some of which was Shadowhawk.
Yeah.
Some of which was Wild Cards.
Wild Cards.
Oh, yeah. But my brother was very influenced by the whole Iron Age stuff at the time. And I was, because I grew up with my comic books I grew up reading were Silver Age. And, Silver Age and a lot of the Bronze Age stuff too. But, the first ones I read were were Silver Age, and they always sort of resonated with me. So with the two of us started collaborating, we were sort of almost collaborating on coming up with a superhero setting. And we came up with a timeline of sort of events, and so it was influenced by sort of a more gritty, sort of dark-edged sort of foundation for a setting, sort of,
right,
but with a lot more we did sort of what Kurt Busiek sort of ended up doing with Astro City, which was using sort of the deconstruction of superhero tropes which is what the best of the Iron Age did, and use that to look back at sort of the more classical Silver Age and Bronze Age stuff and update it to a more modern feel. And that's sort
I
of
was going to say, Star City felt very Astro City inspired.
uh, it, it.
Although it sounds like it was a parallel development kind of deal.
It was to a degree. Later iterations of Star City were as I refined things as I went along, because none of my settings stay static as I go along, especially as I run
Right,
new
right.
campaigns of them. I go back and tweak things. Um, and so one of the things I did early on was, after we had sort of a backstory thing about, like, roughly where superheroes started coming from, events in the United States that led to certain things that would affect, how the law looks at superheroes. This is actually one of the reasons. This is one of the sort of more Iron Agey things we were looking at. Was, I mean, like, how would a government react to people having superpowers?
Mm.
Um, but we decided not to go full, conspiracy, brar, sort of god awfulness with it. But we had to have some sort of implications of it, and we had to think about why this happened and where things went. And we threw things in there too. And as I went along, I got used to running superhero games. I made some tweaks to the setting to influence sort of character design. So,
Hmm.
like, one of the problems I have with running superhero games in general is, for instance, telepathy and a lot of the psionic powers are a real problem for running certain types of adventures.
Yeah.
Telepathy and retrocognition make running a mystery really fucking hard.
Well, just read the brain of this of the bad guys. Find out who the leader is. Yeah.
So part of what I did was sort of worked in reasons that telepaths are generally mistrusted, and various elements about, like, for instance, telepathic evidence gained through telepathy is not admissible in a court of law. It's an illegal search.
Yeah, I could totally see that being an illegal search and seizure as well as a form of self-incrimination.
Yep. And so all that sort of stuff, I worked that in because, and that was how I sort of, put a damper on, like, yeah, if you want to play a telepath, go ahead. But there are societal reasons why people don't trust telepaths and, and such. And there are legal reasons why being one isn't the bee's knees.
Right.
But I never had to come out and say that outright. It's just there in the background. You read through it and, like, most people go, okay, I can see why I would not want to play a telepath. So they go to something else. And if someone really wants to, I mean, I've run a game in Star City where someone played a telepath, and it was interesting. They had to rate. They couldn't just use their telepathy willy nilly to do everything they had to use their telepathy in a way that it felt like that people use it in the comic books, as opposed to the logical gamer answer to it,
Right.
which is do all the obvious things all the time and be like, well, if I'm smart, I'm going to use my telepathy this way. Well, if I use that telepathy this way, it'll get us into trouble these ways. So yeah, but yeah, like one of the so that's sort of my approach was starting with a and the other thing I did was the thing that Astro City was a big inspiration on me for was really narrowing it down and focusing on one city and focusing on the people that live there, not just the people with superpowers, but, like, your average citizens and the people in government and the cops and all that stuff, and really fleshing out the city as a whole to make it sort of a living, breathing entity of its own. I'm a big fan of Kurt Busiek's Astro City. It is literally my favorite superhero comic book.
Regarding the city thing, like that's an old trick that you see in a lot of comic books. Like look up Marvel's New York.
Right? Yeah, totally.
Like that's a big like playground full of all sorts of like
Mm-hmm.
Superheroes with their own various neighborhoods
Yep.
and turfs, for a lack of a better term,
Yep.
and all these other super villains that pretty much work mostly out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And to a lesser extent, DC does it with Metropolis and Gotham.
Gotham is more, especially Gotham.
Yes.
And for like a lot of these books, like Marvel's New York, Gotham for DC, Astro City itself, the cities themselves are almost characters in their own right.
Mm.
The city itself has a personality to it. Like Gotham really has a personality to it.
Yes.
So does Marvel's New York, Metropolis to a degree.
Metropolis, Metropolis is less of a character.
Mm-hmm.
When it is, it's usually used to throw Gotham in a starker contrast.
Yes. I would agree with
Because
that.
Superman's kind of Superman's a cosmic level hero, and yeah, he'll dick around on Earth and help stuff out in Metropolis and whatnot, but it's a real waste of his potential. Both from storytelling point of view and from the a logical use of his powers to limit him to a single city.
Limited to a single city, yeah. Earth again. Superman's best stories are about looking at him as wanting to be and being human. In my opinion,
Yes, yes,
and that is not a story like that does not have to be tied to just a city or a planet or a galaxy. It can be where you could do that wherever.
yep,
So, and that's one of the reasons Superman works so well as a world traveling hero. Is his best stories are about what it is to be human,
yes,
and why
and
he is one of, despite the fact that he's not human, he is one of the best humans. He is one of the most human and best humans in comic books.
also there's a lot also regarding like Superman like trying to fit in and assimilate
Yes.
and whatnot. Like there's a lot of different ways you can interpret that and run that as a metaphor for something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the cool things about Superman.
Yes.
But yeah, Metropolis isn't as important for Superman and his setting
As Gotham
as
is for
Gotham
Batman.
is to Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as an offshoot, we've said this before, and we'll probably say it again in some other other thing. Boy, goddamn, Bill is wrong.
Oh, from Kill Bill, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And that's the fucking point.
and that's the point.
Superman is not Kal-El. He is not Superman. He is Clark Kent.
Yeah,
Clark Kent is the core personality, the core person.
well, it's something that comes up fairly regularly. That again, usually used to throw Batman to stark contrast is like
Yes.
holding a lasso of truth. What's her name? Clark Kent. Inner monologue refers to himself as Clark. Bruce is, well, Batman's inner monologue refers to himself as Batman, and yeah, we've seen several times that no, Batman is the core personality, Bruce is the mask, and that's an important distinction between the two.
Honestly, Batman at his best writing is, I think he's not just Batman, he's both.
Mm. The pull between the two.
What people see as Bruce Wayne isn't really Bruce Wayne. In the same way that what the face that Batman puts on isn't really Batman either. They're both somewhat in between the two of them. What we see.
Sure, but what I'm saying is,
Oh no, he identifies as Batman. Absolutely,
he identifies as Batman.
That is totally true. I agree with that actually. But I'm just saying, what people think of as Batman isn't actually who he is.
No, and again, the best Batman stories are about the degree of his compassion.
Yes, because despite what the outer exterior, Batman is yeah, he's no Wonder Woman on level of compassion, but
well, the dude's a little too fucked up to be Wonder Woman level of compassion. But
no,
yeah,
totally.
And Batman acknowledges this and accepts it as a part of himself.
Yes. But at any rate, back to Star City. Astro City is but to the Astro City, the difference there between the way what Astro City as a comic book is written is not. It's a comic book series about a city, not an individual hero or group of heroes in Astro City. It looks
Right.
at it, and like there are comic books that are told from the point of view of just random schmuck citizens.
Some of the best ones, honestly.
On they're some of the best. Yeah, absolutely. There's a wonderful story about a woman from the Shadow Hill part of Astro City.
Mm.
Absolutely brilliant story. Uh, uh, which sort of highlights who the hang sort of what the hangman is.
Mm.
But it's about her and her interactions with her coworkers from outside Shadow Hill and
And the
her
neighborhood of
Shadow
Shadow
Hill
Hill,
and
and yeah.
and the culture of Shadow Hill and how insular it is and parts of the reasons why it is insular. Um, it's a really neat story.
Mm.
And there are several great stories like that. But the reason is one of the great things about City is that while there are several established important heroes, superhero characters, it doesn't follow it. It doesn't follow all of them all the time. It follows. It'll change different people's point of view, but the city itself is always a character of the story.
Mm.
The city and its people and I liked that. That was something that I really did influence me. Um, Along with a supplement for Champions called San Angelo City of Heroes or something like that. I forget the exact title of the book, but it was a city book. It was a supplement for a particular city in the champion that was a part of the Champions universe called San Angelo, which went into deep detail on, you know, the people who lived there and the culture of the city and the neighborhoods and all this stuff. And that was a real influence on me, on how I adapted Star City going forward.
Mm.
Because I was originally planning like, oh, I got this book. I'm gonna run a campaign from this. And then I started thinking about like how I could adapt this to my setting that I've been working on, which wasn't really the Star City setting. I'd basically at that point I'd run the campaign in that general sort of world concept a few times, and I'd run a couple in Boston, and I'd run a couple in sort of this fictitious city I called Star City, not knowing that there was a Star City in DC. Uh, I just picked it because it sounded like a superhero comic book city name. It turns out I
Right.
was right,
It's already been used as such.
but it's too late for me to change it now, honestly. Um,
and and yeah, I like the Star City thing setting that you've got, because it's wide open enough to allow all sorts of different characters
mm-hmm,
while still being feeling like you're in something that has existed before, because it has,
mm-hmm.
because you've been running it before. It feels like walking into Astro City, or well, not Gotham. Star City's a little too bright for Gotham,
It is.
but Marvel's New York, or what have you.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, and I over time because I've been running it for so long on and off, I've accumulated a bunch of NPCs that I've made for different campaigns.
Mm.
That I just keep using because like I've at some point it's like I invent in one campaign I invented Dr. Knight and his God, I forgot the name of his rival. Hang on, I need to dig this up.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll look it up. But I invented a whole bunch of NPCs and such over time, and I started importing I started importing various characters I made in other games into it. For instance, I've a friend of mine ran a campaign in his own setting, and I played a character in that named Gabriel,
Mm.
and I just imported him into Star City because I liked the character and I thought he'd make a good
Right.
background NPC. Um,
Like yeah, like my two characters for Star City, like there was Dr. Arcane. I wanted to do I really like the idea of a guy that really understood the theory and practice of magic and how it works,
mm-hmm,
and what have you, but not being able to do it himself without technological backup.
Yep.
So I pitched him as Dr. Iron Strange because that's basically what he was.
Yep.
And I really like the idea of him like living in sort of a Shadow Hill light, shall we call it? And Peter was like, "Yeah, there's a neighborhood like that. Yeah, you can live right in there. That's fine."
That was one of the neighborhoods I always said, yeah, there's probably some sort of Shadow Hill equivalent, and Eric made a character fit in. I was like, okay, time to start developing the Shadow Hill equivalent, which I think I called Shadow Hill because wasn't feeling particularly creative.
Yeah, I think you did actually.
I know I did. It was Michael Anders was the other major. I basically invented two rival businessmen who are in charge of big tech companies. Dr. Knight, who's a scientist, who's a he's come into the business by being a brilliant genius inventor. He is wholly not at all sort of somewhat similar to Lex Luthor, except that he's not actually a bad guy. At least not as far as the players know. And on the other side was Michael Anders, who's come into it from he's the owner, CEO and owner. He's the owner of a large conglomeration of companies in many industries, all purchased by his family over the years. And he took over the company when he was, from his father, and has been shifting focus into high technology. And he's not a scientist; he's a businessman. But he and Dr. Knight have formed sort of a rivalry to a degree. They're business rivals, basically.
Right.
So the two of them are basically always competing for contracts and such. And I figured that's fertile ground for background stuff in a superhero setting. I came up with a superhuman, an agency of the government that actually, a law enforcement agency that's tasked with dealing with superhumans because the government would do that at some point. Likely.
Yeah, it seems perfectly logical that would happen.
Because it's like the FBI, like either the FBI and various police departments have to start recruiting super beings, but so the government basically. This was the creation of the NSEA, the National Superhuman Enforcement Agency. I honestly was somewhat inspired by the way it was inspired by the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. Except that not as Orwellian, at least not in name, or in execution. But yeah, like the rooting in the I came up with the reasons why there's I decided that okay, how do I want to get around the problem of mass vigilantes beating up supervillains and having these guys be arrestable and basically have like, okay, this superhero has seen this villain committing this crime. How the fuck do they testify without do I want to keep secret identities, or do I want superheroes to have their IDs public? And I decided I wanted to keep the whole secret identity thing because I think it's fertile ground for storytelling.
Yeah, it's also an old just an old trope.
It is, absolutely, but it's one that you could get rid of if you wanted to. And in some campaigns, I think it's a great idea. But I decided I wanted to be able to, so I had to come up with a way superheroes could theoretically, in theory, testify while maintaining their secret identity. This is a problem. Because, how do you prove you are who you are, that you did, etc. And so that's part of the reason that the Registration Act I had existed. So, people who want to use their powers to fight crime have to be registered with the government, and the government knows who they are. The government also is legally blocked from revealing, their identities to anyone without actual, a court order, basically. So if you want to be a superhero and go out and do superhero stuff, you're basically you're basically doing you are still basically a vigilante,
right?
But you have legal ground for making citizens arrests and being able to testify. And if you've got a good working relationship with either the local police, or with the NSEA, or both, and you are registered, like you don't have to register. It's legal. You're not legally required to. But if you want to use your powers in any way that there you can use, like, there are jobs where you can use superpowers where you won't need to register.
Right.
I want to be a stuntman. Fine, as long as you're not using your powers in any way that can harm somebody, go right the fuck ahead. Who fucking cares? I want to use it.
Yeah. One of the things with when I was making Grog, the Norwegian troll who was kind of reluctantly a hero, who was cursed to be a hero. Like my first thought was, no, he won't be registered because he just wouldn't think it's an issue and kind of be disdainful of it. But then Skitch decided to make a cop, and I was like, makes sense that Skitch and my character would know each other, and Skitch would have convinced him to do so just to shut Skitch up.
It's like, fine, I'll register. Shut up. Jesus. My Ymir's beard, shut up.
You know, 1,000 years ago, I would have simply crushed your skull and eaten your bones. Those are good days.
But yeah, I will say, the campaign setting has been evolving over the 20 years I've been working on it, roughly. Ow. I mean,
Funny how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I've changed things. I've introduced new characters over the years. The NSE agent Donovan Smith was introduced 2 or 3 campaigns ago. He was actually originally created as a on again, off again player character. Just someone. There was somebody who wanted to play occasionally, couldn't be there every week, and so my friend Jesse and I came up with the character concept, and I've since kept using him as an NPC because I think he's a neat NPC. He's an NSEA agent, and he doesn't have a lot of superpower. He is technically a super. It's all mental sort of stuff. His brain is basically a supercomputer. And so he can do complex mathematical calculations almost instinctively. And he's able to, which has given him the ability to sort of, visually look at things moving and be able to calculate vectors and trajectories and such. And, to be able to just sort of, it gives him a lot of sort of mental sort of acuity, and gives him a lot of tricks he can do that. He's physically stronger and quicker than most humans because, he is a super, but not like on like superhuman levels. He's probably not Captain America levels speed and strength, but probably just under there. So we'd have to make up for it on technique and computational ability, and he'd probably lose to Captain America. Well, I'm gonna be real here. It's Cap. But I've a bunch of supervillains over the years that I've come up with for various campaigns. I've just kept using them because eventually it's like, I've come up with the villain concept, and he worked well in this campaign. I'll use him again in future campaigns. He's a background character. Maybe he'll show up, maybe he won't. But every time I add one of those, it adds more to the world and makes it feel bigger and deeper. And that's one of the things I like about having a campaign setting I've been running on and off for different campaigns. Is it allows me to? It's what it's done is it's the setting is sort of organically grown and become more real. Lived in. More lived in, definitely. That's another and so that's one of the. I mean, it's a fun setting, but the thing about it is like looking at what I've got now with the setting, I can take that and apply some of the things I've learned from that to other settings in other games. Like, going forward, starting with a small city or a small area of a city and building outward from that is something I'm a big proponent of now. Because I've seen how it works. I mean, like I would probably like if I was starting a new campaign setting wholly from scratch, a new campaign. Sorry, I shouldn't say a new campaign setting, but a new campaign wholly from scratch. Even if I had a bigger sort of world thing, like some of the settings we've come up with in the brainstorming things, I would probably narrow it down to at least a city or a town or something like that, or a neighborhood to start it and then build up from there. Because starting at sort of a smaller scale, unless the players really want to do a big globe-spanning campaign, or if they want to do, Cosmic Heroes type thing, I'd have to do a lot of work for that because I've never run a cosmic level superhero game. Uh, just not something I've done.
That might be kind of interesting.
It'd be interesting. I'm not sure how well I'd do it. I don't. As much as I've enjoyed some of the cosmic level stuff, like I love Doctor Strange, I haven't read a ton of it outside of Doctor Strange, and not a ton of Doctor Strange. I read a fair bit of it, but it's not. Again, it's one of those things. Like part of the reason I can do this sort of stuff like Star City as well as I do is it falls in this sort of the genre of superhero comics I know best.
Right.
Or the genres of superhero comic books I know best. But I've stolen stuff left and right from various comic book settings too in this. Like, I'm sure Eric can probably guess a few.
No.
I mean, and not just Astro City. I've stolen some concept ideas from Bendis's Powers.
Yep. Oh no, there's a bunch of powers in there with all the stuff involving the cops.
Yep. Exactly, because like Powers is a great example of how you can work cops into a superhero setting.
I also really liked what I've read of Powers, which is honestly a fair amount. I'm not sure if it's still going on. I know I never finished it, but I read like 3 or 4 trades.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Bendis in general, but I liked most of what I read of Powers.
There's a wee bit of like classical turn of the century science fiction stuff like H.G. Wells and Jules Verne there.
Sure, absolutely.
Particularly when it went to Atlantis.
Well, yeah.
Plus, kaiju.
Well, I mean, kaiju are... Godzilla's in the Marvel Universe, dude.
Yeah, I know. How cool is that?
Fucking amazing. But yeah, like, going to Atlantis was just something I did. And, of course I included some alien stuff because, alien invasions are such a staple of superhero comics.
Yep.
I've done all this. The Atlantis stuff I had noodled on conceptually, but I had not used in a campaign yet before the Mutants and Masterminds. Mutants and Masterminds, version we did. That was the first time I'd actually used Atlantis proper in Star City. I'd come up with some of the concepts for it before, but I'd never actually gotten around to using it yet. Because I just hadn't gotten around to doing it, and you guys gave me a perfect opportunity to use Atlantis. So
yeah. Because of course Dr. Arcane had been to Atlantis previously. He was one of the leaders in his field of applied thaumaturgy. And I love that was a thing. That you could be a leader in the field of applied thaumaturgy in a superhero setting.
Well, it works. if magic's part of a superhero setting, of course that's going to be in there.
Yep.
Someone is going to try to look at magic from a scientific point of view. It's going to happen. Someone is going to say, well, how would I approach this from a scientific point of view? And all the mages will look at them like they're bonkers. But magic isn't a science. It's magic. Clearly, it's a fundamental force of the universe. Therefore, science can be applied to it. Scientific method can be applied to it. Obviously. But it's magic.
Which is another one of the things I liked about Dr. Arcane was that he was a scientist who was raised amongst former mages. They couldn't do magic anymore.
Right.
But yeah, like he understood like both sides of the equation and approached it from sort of a weird hybrid thing.
Yep.
And I liked how you incorporated a lot of that into the world, like the Dr. Frankenstein villain we ran into,
Yeah.
who based a lot of his stuff on Dr. Arcane's papers, and I thought that was really cool.
Well, hey, if you're gonna feed me stuff like that, I'll use it.
Well, clearly you missed the part about ethics.
Yeah. That's actually one of the things I would have liked to have explored more is the woman who the Frankenstein's monster that was created in that.
Yes.
I wish I'd gotten to do more with her and see where she would have ended up.
Yeah.
You know,
And she was definitely something that the doc would have kept tabs on, if for no other reason than he felt partially responsible for her creation.
Yep. And then part of what she was like, I know Nick's character, Errant, was kind of weirded out by her and found her, she was like, because she is, Errant was religious, and so
Yep.
the like, holy fuck, what's the deal with her soul? Like, what? Is she actually alive? Is she actually a person? It's like,
And of course, Archie had an answer for him that may or may not have been correct, but was based on his understanding of how things worked. The problem is it was his working theory. He had no way to test it because you can't test souls.
No. I know. That's one character I wanted to do more with. I wanted to do more with the connection between you and Baron von Toten.
Yeah, that would have been. I was looking forward to the eventual
confrontation. Yeah. Baron von Toten is
how that would have gone.
Yeah. Baron von Toten is an ancient, not ancient, but a very old German mage who lost his powers, but then decided to basically went into super science from there and built a battle suit. That's also partially life support system. So he no longer has magic, and is a former mage.
Yeah. So again, understands a lot of that other shit.
Mm-hmm. But he primarily, he's technically part of the same family Archie is. Dr. Arcane was. They technically,
which fucked up Archie for a while.
But yeah, like I that wasn't part of von Toten's original background, but I saw the possible connections. Like, you know what? Click. Let's connect them.
And that was great.
Yes, it turns out Dr. Arcane is related to one of the most powerful supervillains in the world.
And is thoroughly squicked out by it.
Understandably, Von Toten's a terrible person. Like, really bad.
And that was and Grog was largely a reaction to playing Archie, this unambiguously good character with a very strong sense of morals that he never codified because he never felt the need to.
Right.
Well, Grog was someone who was compelled to act against his nature by outside forces and resented it, but after centuries kind of also made those his own. But that was something that was going to come up later on in roleplay.
Right.
That was part of the plan. Who knows if it would have happened.
Yeah. Right. So
yeah, it was Archie was the big damn hero. Grog was the reluctant hero. Because like I always like that idea. Both the guy who wants to be a villain but his own scruples keep on getting in the way, and the guy who doesn't want to be a hero but keeps on getting forced into that situation through external forces. Both of those are neat ideas.
Yep. Yeah, they're both interesting. They're not my favorite sort of sort of odd look at the superhero. Mine is still
Mm,
the former villain who's trying to redeem themselves,
mm.
and knowing they probably can't, but are going to
Yeah.
do their damnedest to anyways.
Well, Tarnished Angel is a great story,
What?
so
No,
you can't
no,
argue that.
no. Yeah, the Tarnished Angel is one of the one of the 6-issue story arcs that was done. Busiek did in Astro City, and it's one of the best.
It probably that and Confessor or
Confession,
Confession.
they're both great. Some of the
Yeah.
later stuff's been really good too. I mean, it's still going, so you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know, building a superhero world is, I think, part of what you want to do. Like, sort of all of this going back to sort of that thing is, you want to make it feel like I mean, like you can do superhero stories that are not tied to to the world we know.
Mm.
You know,
Excuse me.
there are great superhero stories that are set in, like out in the galaxy at large. I mean,
Yep.
just look at Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah.
uh, uh, or Planet Hulk. Uh, there's great stuff that deals with, like, that's primarily focused on stuff in the other dimensions and the other realms, like Doctor Strange's stuff,
Yep.
uh, all sorts of the cosmic type stuff. Largely that sort of starts leaking into sort of sci-fi outer space stuff also. Um,
Well, also there's some of the later Hellboy where he starts
yeah.
well, I'm not going to give anything away, but man, I need to get like reread Hellboy, like all of it. Plus pick up the stuff that I haven't picked up because Hellboy ended and I don't want it to end. If I never read it, then it never ends. I know that's a complete utter fallacy, but it's part of the reasoning why I haven't finished my favorite comic book.
um, but I genuinely feel that, especially for if you want to run a sort of more traditional superhero game, tying it back, trying to connect it to the world and make it feel like it's part of a living, breathing world is the easiest way to do that. And probably the best way is to, as I said, just start with an actual city. And it doesn't have to be a real city, but like that the one of the easiest ways is building it around your hometown, that
Mm.
you know best. Like the city you know best, and that way you have, the architecture, the culture of the place, how people would react to adding in, you know, people in gaudy costumes beating up other people in gaudy costumes who are trying to do bad things. uh, how the cops would react to these people.
Mm.
Uh, how the newspapers would react. What the newspapers are. How the newspapers write. You know, well, less so nowadays, but
Right.
the local, like local bloggers would react. uh, the local news stations. Who the mayor is. Who the how the city council sort of rules on things. This is also, and it's
You
also
know the various like businesses in the area,
right.
and
Totally.
the different cliques and neighborhoods, and like how interconnected are these neighborhoods? How much do people talk to their neighbors? Do they do so at all? Yeah.
Right. How do they react to outsiders getting involved in stuff?
Yep.
Like, if you're running a game set in Charleston, in Boston,
Mm.
like, or South Boston for that matter, like there'd be a lot of we didn't see nothing.
Yeah.
Like, even if like these are like a superhero is not from the area, comes in to try to find out stuff about a villain, even if somebody that everyone in the neighborhood hates, they're not going to talk to outsiders in general.
Yeah.
And they're like shit like that is stuff that it really helps make it flesh out a campaign setting, and knowing that, and it makes it feel more real and lived in. And so if you're doing it in a city from the outset that you can do that, and if you're creating a city, you have to start thinking about stuff like that. Let's see what else. But thinking about how I do think thinking about how superheroes interact with the law is something that I think you're gonna have to think about at some point.
Yeah.
Even if it is to just sort of say, I don't like I don't want to think about it from a too realistic standpoint. That's still a conscious decision you have to make at some point.
Right.
Uh, do you want it to feel like Silver Age comic books, or do you want it to feel like the heroes are in like the law enforcement is in opposition to the heroes, or do you want it to feel like they're working with the heroes, or it depends on what are your how is your law enforcement generally viewed by the populace? That's important.
Yep. Also, how does the populace respond to the heroes? Is it like an X-Men situation where there's a lot of distrust and even prejudice against them, or is it more like say like the Justice League, where it's like, yeah, those guys are awesome, or the Fantastic Four? You've got a mix. Like they're really popular and liked by everyone, but their neighbors who hate them because a nihilist keeps on showing up and chewing on the power cables.
Spider-Man's another great example. Most of
Yes,
the
Spider-Man.
citizenry loves him, but a lot of the people in power despise him.
The cops hate him, and he's
Some
got
of the cops
real
hate
problems
him.
with the press. Some of the
Right.
cops hate him. And he's got real problems with the press. It's not just the Daily Bugle and J. Jonah Jameson. It's like the rest of the press is like, we really not sure how to cover this guy.
Right. And that's I think is really interesting. That sort of dynamic is again, that's part of what makes Spider-Man feel real.
Yes.
Is because there's all that nuance to how he interacts with the city he lives in and interacts in with. And that's something that I think helps to think about possible ways that could happen. That's something I'd like to do better going forward if I'm running Star City again, is to develop more of that stuff.
Right.
I firmly believe that Star City is a work in progress. All of my campaign settings are works in progress. None of them are finished, and none of them ever will be, as far as I'm concerned. I'm always happy to go. I'm always going to go back and tweak them if I go back to them and run another campaign in a setting. I always change them because I think I always feel like I've got more things to say and add to them. If I don't, and if I'm out of things to say and add to a setting, I'm probably not going to use it. I'm like, as much as I love I think as much as I would love. I always feel like I always like approaching a campaign setting as something if I've got nothing new to say in a campaign setting, that means I'm out of stories for that setting, is what it boils down to. And if I don't have stories for a setting, then I'm going to have real trouble writing adventures for it, because
Right.
at the core, an adventure is a story.
Yeah, it's collaborative storytelling.
Absolutely.
And it's something that a lot of people sometimes forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like that role playing games is collaborative storytelling. Like game masters too full of themselves, or players they're too myopically focused on their own character. That sort of thing. You're telling a story, like all of you together.
Yep.
And sometimes, yeah, you're gonna have different views of how the story works, which is fine.
Yep, totally. I agree completely. So yeah, I think that's part, and that's the other thing is my campaign settings change when they interact with the players.
Yes.
Like going forward, like if I run Star City again, I now have a connection between Baron von Toten and a superhero that I didn't have before. That's going to be there. Going forward, Sir Berklac, the Green Knight, is part of the setting. He wasn't before, but because he was Aaron's mentor, he's now part of the setting. Going forward, if I run a campaign sort of anywhere near the timeline of the player characters, Superiana will have started a journey from being a supervillain to possibly being something else, something better. Because of her interactions with the party and because of the actions she took to help save the world from Apex having been mind controlled by aliens. That's a sentence that just came out of my mouth.
Yes.
And it's a one that I liked.
Yeah, and yeah, that was pretty awesome. The what am I looking for? Like, one of the things that I was looking forward to, but never got a chance to get explored in the second Star City iteration, was playing new up and coming heroes in a setting where our other heroes had become
Yeah.
like big deals.
Yeah.
And our relationships and thoughts about those other guys who were also us.
I think it'd been interesting to have, had sessions where some of the party interacted with the other players playing their characters from the other campaign.
Yeah.
I think that'd have been interesting. And it may be something we'll come back to at some point.
Like Errant and Skitch's cop character's name I can't remember.
I have to look. I've got it somewhere. I have to look it up. Yeah, or God, it's unfortunate to be. You can't. It'd be hard for you to play two characters at the same time. But like Grog interacting with Dr. Arcane would be interesting.
I think I could do it, but the problem with that is it leaves everyone else out in the cold.
Right. Actually, Grog interacting with Errant.
Oh yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah, because Aaron's got that whole medieval knight thing going on.
Yep.
And a lot of his worldview is like built around the whole idea of chivalry. And Grog lived through the age of chivalry and knows a lot of that is shit. Plus, having the point of view of being the monster the knights hunted.
Yep. Oh God, Grog probably remembers Berkelak from way back in the day.
Yeah, they probably tangled. Oh man, that's how Grog knows Berkelak. Because he had the red bowler, which I decided was a gift from a pack of red caps he used to hang out with. Berkelak killed those red caps. Because red caps are not nice people.
No.
Hanging out with them.
They're motherfuckers. Oh. So yeah, I mean stuff like that. Like I that's one of the things I love about being able to using a campaign setting is be able to go back and do stuff like that at some point. I don't know if I've never done it really, but that's just not true. I did do interactions with different parties in the same setting in feng shui before. Like I actually one of the big sort of denouement for one of the long running feng shui games I did ended up basically like the player characters end up forming teams with there's big event going on, and so they had to split into groups. But in order to do that, we split them up into groups and party them up with player characters that they'd played in other feng shui games. So like the groups would be these mixes of like from this, some guys from group A, some guys from group B, some group C, and send them up. And like each week would be a different group. It would be a different grouping of those characters. And as it wound its way down to the big final confrontation, which some of the people survived, but they did stop. They did save the day, mostly.
Excellent.
Didn't go as well as I was hoping it would, actually. Player characters kind of got housed a bit more than I planned on.
Right.
Oh well. At any rate,
man, Grog and Aaron, I want to play that game now.
So anyways, yeah, so I hope you guys found that interesting. I will be leaving a link to the campaign document that I put together in the description on YouTube, and I'll probably drop it in the chat for people who want to read over it. This is just it's just the preface to the setting, the thing I gave out to the players when the campaign started. It doesn't have all the details or anything like that, but for people who want to get a little feel for some of the background stuff that I didn't talk about in the podcast, you're welcome to take a look at it. I'll drop it there, and I'll put it in the doobly-doo on YouTube also for anybody who wants to read over it and take a look at it.
Mm.
But yeah, that's gonna do it for this week. Uh, I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I said, normally we save time in each episode for viewer questions. Uh, we do have a couple of them, but we'll have to come back to that next time because we're kind of out of time. Uh,
Yeah, we kind of filled this one up.
but if you do have viewer questions you'd like to ask us, we love getting questions. We love trying to answer them. Uh, please send them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com, or you can post them in the comment section on YouTube if you'd like. Uh, or I guess you could send them to me via Twitter. My Twitter handle's @MechaGM. Uh, if you got feedback for us, ways we can make the show better, constructive criticism, all that jazz, please send it to us. We love getting this stuff. We want to make the show better going forward, as always.
Mm.
And if you got show topic suggestions for us, things you think you'd like to hear us talk about for an entire episode, send them to us. We love those. We love those to pieces. That's how we did this episode.
Yes.
Same address, same places, all that jazz. We record the show most Tuesday nights starting at about 7 p.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/MechaGM. I tweet out when we're going live. My Twitter handle's @MechaGM, so you can find me there and find tweets there. I tweet out when the stream's going live in general because I stream other stuff too. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube, my YouTube channel. A bunch of the previous campaigns I've run. Old episodes of Grognards, episodes of the other podcasts we do. Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. But that's going to do it for this week, I think. Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time. So until we see you guys next, be happy, be safe, keep on gaming, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.